Welcome to another GM Tips. Yeah, after the last one, you guys are probably like, "Jeez," you know. Sorry, I was a tearjerker a little bit in the beginning, but when you're going through a lot of things, you have your ups and your downs, and I think Mom would be pleased in what I shared. Sorry, I drink a coffee here to get me going in a good direction. Um, this morning I'm going to do a GM tips on a wonderful setting that is a Pathfinder inspired setting for steampunk called Pure Steam. And again, I do reviews now and then, and one of the things I like is finding good systems that I really either want to GM or play. This is one that I absolutely want to GM. Now, it's about 40 bucks worth of investment if you buy the hardcover. It's about 20 some if you do the PDF. There is going to be a second book to it that's coming out that's Westward Bound. That will be another Pure Steam setting that'll handle the Western U.S. And what they did is they took a setting where they converted the world as it is today in the Western world to a steampunk setting and a what if it was a Pathfinder setting, which I really like that because not a lot of people in these Pathfinder and in the medieval RPGs take the real world Earth and kind of convert it, and so that's one of the things that I really love about it is that they do that and that they go through. So let me give you an idea. Here's the map, and hopefully I'll get this right, of the world as it is called Northern Ilaria, the map of Northern Ilaria. And Ilaria is North America, basically. There's South Ilaria 2, that also is a part of it. And they have several empires they put in there, depending on whether it's an elf, a dwarf, humans, and other kinds. They give you a great history on it. I love that they go through the history of the formation of it. And sorry, I got mini GM running Duke around because she wants to keep him out of her food this morning. What do I like about the system? I like, number one, that it incorporates Pathfinder into the system and works with it. And they incorporate the races. And one of the things they do is they give you not only the races, but they give you blurbs on them. So the dwarves, what kind of dwarves are there? And yes, they use a lot of the things, and they give you the relations, the alignments, the really breakout of how they interrelate to each other. And I think that's a great thing. They've got basically two types of dwarves. They've got the Bray dwarf and the Drog dwarf, which you guys will have to look that up. I'm not going to give away everything on it. You have the elves. They have the Jade elves and the regular Amber elves. So they're using a gemstone kind of reference to them, but I love what they do on developing that. The gnomes. They really play in the gnomes here because, again, gnomes are inventors and creators. So that's one of the things they do. Sorry, a little choppiness. Mini GM wants to play with the dog this morning. But they have the gentry gnomes, which are the upper class kind of fit into society gnomes. And then they've got the sharper gnomes, which are more of the wild gnomes that run around and deal with the goblin slavers and the slavery that goes on. And slavery in this world, really the goblins and the orcs are the perpetrators of it. So it's kind of an interesting twist on things. The half-orcs, they've got the Avis and the Borndrin, which are interesting groups, and the halflings. They've got both the Leatherfoots, which are kind of more of your hillbilly, hate to use the term, but it is kind of that way, the hillbilly halflings, and then the Tenderfoots. They also have the humans. They have the Monaquan humans, which are the more of the tribal Native American ones, the Raushites, which are more of the Eastern European ones that have come over, the Ularans, and then they have the orcs, the Jonish orcs, as well as the I don't know if they have another one. I think they just have the Jonish orcs. So they give you a little bit of flair, and they don't just say, hey, use the races out of the books and that's it. No, they really fit it in. They give you traits. They give you other things that are common to that world and the steampunk type of society. So I really, really like that. I think for me, that was enriching because a lot of times I see systems and they'll assume, okay, just use the stuff out of the core rulebook, no big deal, and convert it to our world. No. Thank you, Pure Steam and the Pure Steam writers. And I really appreciate Adam Crockett for doing this and his crew, because really Adam and Brennan, Ashby, and some of the others really did a tremendously good job of this. Now, classes. They have a lot of the classes that you're going to use out of either the advanced or the core rulebook. So they have the Alchemist, the Barbarian are both part of the deals, but they give you some rules as well. So, for instance, like the role of the Barbarian, an educated populace is a wellspring of productivity in the lands of Alara. So the Barbarians are kind of more the disruptive element of this. And you have the Bard, the Cavalier, the Cleric, Druid, Gunslinger, which makes sense in a steampunk world, the Magus, the Oracle, the Ranger, the Sorcerer, the Witch, the Wizard. And then they have some new ones, which I really like. They have the Chaplain, which the Chaplain is kind of the proselytizer of the gods, which is really kind of an interesting deal. And they give you some real good fleshed out things about the Chaplain. And so it's interesting, you don't just have the clerics, but you also have the chaplains, which are their new version of things. A lot of pros in the chaplains because they give you a lot of side groups. So they have the different chaplain groups that they give you, like the gatekeepers and the trefoil laurels, the magistry. So they give you several different types of archetypes, is the best way I could put it, for the organizations. You have the gearhead. Now the gearhead is really, really cool. The gearhead is your steampunk techie. And so for that's a really cool class that you can end up playing and be the adventure tinker type. So keep that in mind. It's a really neat class that they flesh out. And it's not just like an alchemist spin or a wizard spin. It is truly a gearjack. Now with this, and I really like this in here, is they give you the gadget skills, the jury rigging, the engineering, so you can do some different things. But they also have gearhead schematics. So instead of giving you just spells, they give you like schematics that you can use to build your gears. Now you can take specialties, which I like that. So if you want to be your pneumatics guy, you can be your pneumatics guy or gal. You can be the electrical engineer, so the one that's doing the electricity, more the Tesla stuff that's coming out. You can be that as well. So you can go either direction with it. They give you a lot of neat archetypes with the current classes. So, for instance, there's your alchemist. In this case, they call him a fumigant. So it's the person that hits you with the different alchemical poisons and fumes. You can do moonshining. Hey, let's have a little moonshine. The barbarians. So you got the civil bedlamite, which is like your person that's out there on the frontiers digging for gold and doesn't want anything to do with civilization. The bards, you have the gypsy. I love that. Bring the gypsy role into things. The fighter, you can do the pugilist with your fists. So you can be that guy that is the budding pugilist on this, which is a great bunch of fun. The Ructioneer. I love the Ructioneer. Those are your guys. The description they use of the Ructioneer, which is a cool description. Wherever a fight breaks out, for seemingly no reason, a Ructioneer is sure to be found grinning. To them, violence is an art, and they are the graffiti artists of their day. Often hired as wasters and mixers, known by their contemporaries and common folk alike as the best kind of toughs who waste no time mixing it up. So these are your fight starters, your rabble rousers. The monks, they have some really cool ones. They've got widowmen, which they are the law enforcing units. So the monks are your law enforcers that are used around in that time. The rangers are your guides and scout, but they actually have one that's called a blockade runner. So if there's things going on and that things need to get done, you trust your blockade runner. The rogues, you got some cool things, and then you got your Clydesman rogue. The Clydesman is the collective machine type of people that use the machines to do their roguery work. And then you've got your grease rat. So those are the people that deal with making sure everything works together. Grease rats are at home amongst gears and tools. So they're another form of gearhead that you can use among your rogues. And then they got a ton of feats that really are just geared towards the era. Now, love that they use the illustrations of the money. So they're using some great little monies for the different groups. They give you a lot of different types of neat equipment. So here's just some of the previews of the guns and different elements that they use. Love it. They do a great job. Now you can bring in your stuff from your ultimate combat as well, which would work in this era really well. Plus, they have a lot of goods that's devoted to the steampunk genre, which is fun with these type of things. And then they give you a lot of background on the type of states and what's going on. So they give you a lot of history and places you can go, plus some monsters in here that they really bring in that are cool. I just like it because it takes a familiar system. So you're a Pathfinder person or a D&D person. A change to pure Steam is going to be an easy shift for you. You're not having to relearn everything from scratch. And no offense to Tofra and some of the other ones that do steampunk games. They do some fun games with like one type of dice. The problem is you got to learn their whole system from scratch. Whereas with a Pathfinder system, if you play Pathfinder, if you play D&D, you're familiar with the feats, the stats, the type of races, and then it's just a matter of learning the little nuances. So it's a lot easier system to learn and a lot of fun. Now, the only drawback is they only have a few modules out for it. So you're really going to have to do a lot of conversion of modules yourselves to things. And in doing that, that's going to be a real challenge. But if you have the steampunk mindset, and I kind of do, but coming up with adventures and things will be a lot easier to do. It's almost like a Deadlands 2.0 or a Call of Cthulhu meets Deadlands meets Pathfinder type of mix. I love those type of systems because there's a lot you can do in that 1800s era that really makes it fun. They do have ships, airships, and they do capitalize on those airships a lot. The Westward Bound is going to add the marshals in and some other classes, and it's really going to flesh out the whole world. So if you get the 2 books, I really believe it'll be a good investment. It'll be about $80, but then if you have the other Pathfinder stuff, you have all the monsters, you have the different things, and outside of the little bit of nuances, you can really incorporate a lot of these creatures into that world really easy. So my take on everything with it, I think it's going to be a great system to run. I'm going to look forward to it with my players, and I'm definitely going to run it coming up in the near future, either on maybe like a Roll20 thing, or I'm going to do it somewhere else. So I really want to do this system. I really want to have some fun with this, and I really want to make sure that we really have the fun of the steampunk. So we may get into a little bit of the costuming, which I know a lot of you folks love the costuming aspect of steampunk, and that's something that I'm still getting used to myself, being that I'm 48. So hang on real quick. I would say make sure also Sirenscape's got some background music that you can play for that type of era. So make sure you get a system that has some of that. The one of the things I love is when a GM puts in the background music that fits the era. It really kind of gives you that flair to it. But this is going to be a great system, I think, as they get more modules for it and they do more. I think you're going to see it really blossom out. It's in a lot of stores, so if you go to your regular stores to buy books, these guys have been real good. They're based out of Austin, a lot of it. So that's where really this grew. Home Roots was in Austin, Texas. I remember seeing this book at a store and then investing the money to get the book. So it was actually, Kim got it for me as a gift because she wanted to make sure I had a little bit of steampunk in there as well, and she saw that it met the system, and she saw me talking about it. So I look forward to it. I mean, as you can see on the back wall up there, I'm a person that I think is getting more and more into steampunk. So if you like that kind of system or are looking for something like that, Pure Steam's going to make sense, especially if you're familiar with the other systems. You can adapt it really easy. The maps are there, and it gives you a lot of wherewithal to mix it with modern history. Let me recommend a couple authors for good inspiration. Harry Turtledove is really good. Cherry, oh, what's Cherry's last name? She's a very famous steampunk author. Cherry, I'll look her up. It's Cherryh, I believe is how she spells it. Priest, Cherry Priest. Sorry, Cherry, I'm killing you by not remembering your last name. Cherry Priest, great authoress, and really I think would fit this very well with her books. There's a lot of other steampunk books that are really good that you can put in and use in this type of genre. Just remember, you got a lot of different other races. You got elves, you got gnomes, you got halflings. You can bring in the other races as you see fit. Because there's a lot of water around the United States, you can use merfolk and maybe the Aslanti and pick them in because they can be the Atlantis off of this world, which really makes that kind of fun. So there's a lot you can do. You can have the aboleths and the aboleths controlling people. There's just so much flair here that I love, and the fact that they're using pistols and that it is more steam powered, it just adds the element of magic and steam all in one, and I love that aspect. It really just twists things around in a fun way. And so I may end up using more of these elements just in my regular Pathfinder game because it's just one of these systems that has that richness. Again, I could go through nuts and bolts every piece of it. I know sometimes you guys get bored with that, so I'm not doing that. I'm hitting the high points of where the game, I think, is really at its best. And so a couple things that they talk about also in the books that I think are good to note is that they do have a vehicle section, which, you know, a lot of people with things don't put in the vehicles, and that makes it hard on things. So as I go to the vehicle section here, I'm going to take a look here at the different types of vehicles because they have a lot of flair in some of the vehicles they're using. So they do have a gyrocopter for those of you that want to use a steampunk helicopter. They have the gyrocycle. I love the picture of that gyrocycle. They have the steam harvester. So this is a steam harvester. So if you're out on a farm, you'll run into those robots. It's kind of a steam-powered gear creation. The steampunk tank. Yes, they have the almost the World War I 1800s era tank. They have the steam wagon. So when you're crossing the prairies, you got the steam wagon you can use. And then they also have the War Zeppelin. Got to love all the things they put in there. Now, they didn't put in ships because a lot of that's already contained in the Pathfinder material, so you don't have to worry about that. They do give you languages in here. There are some new languages. They give you some stuff on the different cities of Alara, and so they go through that. Now, some of the things they do give you, they give you some NPCs, which I like that. So you can have some different NPCs that you can use in your stories. So they'll give you a little bit in there to work with. They also give you factions. There's a lot of different factions on this world. There's the Communist Crop Commune. These folks are about being an agricultural society. The Crowley and Sons Shipwrights. These are the seafaring people that are building the ships. Exogenesis orchards. Those are the ones that use alchemy to grow the different plants and things to eat. The Fife and Drum Fraternity, those are the military, the former military. The 5 Points Symphonic Labs, so they've got the tech factions and the experimenting. Stonefell Union of Mine Workers, so those are your miners that enslave people to mine. The Harvester Gypsies. The Tsurushimo Library for more of the elves and the Asian flair. Victory Over War, or VOW. Those are the Confederate states that fight the Union. And then the Wildlife Identification and Land Development. Now, they do have some cool monsters. They have the Cadaver Cactus. Gotta love that. So it's a festering eyesore on the land that kind of has like a sickly, fleshy look to it. Nasty, nasty, nasty. The caterwaul fish that make up a lot of different caterwauling things. The winged lynx. So, yes, for those of you that like your winged creatures, go for the winged lynx. Shout out to the How We Roll folks. Dystress or Emlyn could use one of these winged lynxes as they're familiar. The true razorbacks, the reanimated corpse. So you can be a reanimator and reanimate the corpses. And those are actually neutral. And then the armatures. So you've got the major armatures that are being used and fought. Gotta love that. See if they got anything else. Nope, I think those are it. They got the constructs. They go through the different things like they do in a bestiary and give you all your elements. And then they give you some little adventures at the end of it. So a lot of stuff packed into, if you look at it, not a very thick book, so it's an easy read. I loved reading through it. I enjoyed the book itself, and I just have to get a group that wants to play. So any of you guys that want to play, give me a shout out and let me know sometime, and maybe we'll get a group together and give it a whirl. But definitely make the investment. You definitely want to get at least the PDF and read it beforehand so you become familiar with it. And take the time, well worth the money, in my opinion. Now, again, it's just my opinion, but I think it really does some justice to the steampunk world. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great morning.